Welcome to the fish tank.
Hey everybody, Fishman here. Welcome to another video. For quite some time now I've been in, my intention has been to build a new fish rack because I want to do some comparisons between my current system and systems that I tend to find a lot of people tend to maintain in their fish rooms. But unfortunately to do that, I needed to first clean, and you can probably tell I really don't like cleaning. The problem is I tend to accumulate an awful lot of stuff. Every time I get a new job or do a reno on an old job, I end up with lots of bits and pieces, and at the time I always say to myself, hey, that might come in handy. I could use this for parts, and so on and so forth. And I tend to end up with an awful lot of junk, and after a certain amount of time you just have to say enough is enough and clean it all up. So this is going to go on for a while. I will not torture you by showing you it all, but in the end, underneath all that was this. This is a bench I had built. I originally had some aquariums on this, so you can tell by the piping in the back that I had some drainage there as well. But then I'm just converting it into a pure workbench. And then I was thinking that section on the right there, I was going to remove and put up the new rack. And then it had one of these moments where you kind of look to the left, look to the right, and said, I could just put all this over onto the workbench, keep the workbench the way it is, not take it down at all. And that way, once it's tidied up and not taking up more space than it needs to, it frees up an awful lot of space. So now, over here, I have floor space once I take this portable table down and a piece of wood, and I don't have to dismantle anything, which really appeals to the lazy person in me, because I really don't want to have to dismantle any more than I need to rebuild anything. And besides, I can use that bench quite easily. So a little bit time later, all nice and clean, it's now time to build the rack. This aluminum you see standing up here is going to be the material for the new rack system. I really like aluminum. It's easy to drill, and the most important thing is it doesn't rust. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly. It's the same process I use for pretty much every other build I've done with the aluminum. I just template it up. The only difference is these short pieces I can do with the vise, and it's really quite quick. But the longer pieces, the milling machine really didn't come in that handy because they're just way too long to fit anywhere on it. So what I needed to do is get a stiff piece of board like this, and I'm using two of the uprights, the 1x1 tubular aluminum, as framing for this. And all I do is I clamp a stop on it and measure everything up. I always measure from one end just to make sure that there's consistency that way, so the holes match up. And then it's a simple matter of drilling a hole, flipping it over, doing all the holes. This is a separate piece, but because it's the mirror image on the back or the front, I make sure I flip them so that just in case there's a small difference in the holes positioning, they'll all match up. So anyway, here I'm just going to show you, even though this is, like I said, kind of rudimentary way of doing it, with the templating you can actually get fairly accurate. It's not machining accurate, but it's more than accurate enough for building a fish rack. And it's still relatively quick. And then the same sort of process for the uprights, except you can see in the pad there I have to flip for different directions, because the upright's going to hold the long pieces along the front and then the cross pieces, so they're on different positions. That's why this is not angle as well, but it has to be a square tube. So this is very straightforward. The only other thing I do that makes for slightly better accuracy is I only drill through one side. I don't drill all the way through. It just gives just in case there's a little bit of a twist, or because, like I said, this is just plywood, right? So just to keep it as accurate as possible, because I do want this to be as level as I can get it. And once all the holes are drilled, it's just a simple matter of doing the assembly work. And I use stainless steel bolts for this, just to, again, avoid any possible rust issues. So you'll notice that these uprights here are quite a bit longer. That's because they go all the way up to the floor joist above me. And what I'm going to do, once this is all leveled and tightened and everything's done that I need to do to it, I'm going to move the rack so that it lines up with that joist, and then I'm just going to bolt it to it. Even though once this is all filled with water and tanks and everything, it is quite heavy. It's not going to go anywhere. It just adds a little extra level of rigidity to it. So what I'm going to do here as I'm assembling this is I'm going to go through some of my reasonings for why I do this way now. Because I have built racks in the past, as I said, out of steel and also out of wood. The steel issue is obviously because, rust. But I also found that wood is a problem, not so much for structure or for longevity. I find it's a problem when it comes to you need really thick material to get the same kind of effect. So you end up giving up a lot of space that you could use for aquariums and for work, like access to it, because you needed thicker pieces of material. And then once originally I started using aluminum just because, I figured I just tired of the rust, but I wasn't entirely certain it would last as long as it should. But now, 15 years later, I have no more concerns whatsoever for it. I mean, you have to make sure you do buy good quality stainless steel bolts because if you get cheap ones, that can become an issue after a decade or two. But the aluminum itself, like behind me is my salt system, and you know how salt is. It's very corrosive. It's over 10 years old, and the aluminum has no indication whatsoever that it's any different besides having salt crusting on it, of it changing, no rust, no nothing. And you're going to be seeing this rack an awful lot in future videos. The racks you've seen so far, the main one where I have a lot of my freshwater fish, and also the saltwater one, they're for business mostly. So every time I want to set up a little experiment to try something out, usually some sort of jog comes along that kind of messes things up a bit, and I only can go so long before I need to use it for what it's designed for. But this rack is going to be almost exclusively used for trying new things out, and also as a comparison, as like I said in the beginning, for different styles of maintaining fish rooms. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to not so much make judgment calls on any of it, but I'm going to try and provide all the different types of possible systems that you can use, and you guys can compare yourselves and figure out which ones you like, and hopefully you'll find it useful and might come in handy when you decide you want to make your own fish room. So that's pretty much the intent for this. With that, this rack is going to have salt water on it, fresh water on it, hard water on it, soft water on it, all kinds of different things, different types of water change systems, pretty much everything I can dream up. I'm going to give a try with this system. Again, some of it will work, some of it will fail, but hopefully this information will be useful to you in the long run. So what I'm going to do now is, you can tell the bolts aren't even tightened yet. I need to square this up, tighten all the bolts down, get it in its proper position, and then the last thing I need to do is, because this is metal, I'll be taping on strips of medium density foam insulation that I'll be cutting from. It's the standard insulation that you can get for housing and that sort of stuff. It's 1/2 inch thick, and I just cut 1 inch strips of it, and it's a great buffer. It will take up a little bit of difference also between if there's not perfectly flat and level, and it'll just make it last longer. So here we go, it's all done. Actually, one thing's not left to do. I haven't bolted it to the ceiling yet. That will be the absolute last thing I do, because I may have to get in behind here, move stuff around, that sort of stuff. So that will probably get done just before I fill it with water. So here you go, it's level, it's all set and ready to go. It's going to tape on the foam now. You actually don't need to go to any great lengths to secure this. I just used a little bit of tape. The tape actually doesn't really last that long. It'll peel off. But once the aquariums are on, it doesn't go anywhere. And I suppose if for some reason you need to change them, you can peel the old stuff and put new stuff on. Really is no big deal. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this style of video, please like and or subscribe. And as I said, you're going to be seeing this rack a lot. And it's going to be interesting, I hope. So anyway, thank you very much. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks again. Bye.